It's that time of year again, friends and enemies and assorted potted plants. The season of holidays. The season of hanging ostentatious lights all over your house. The season of presenting gifts to the people you care about. And the season of theocratic fascists complaining about people who aren't Christians having holidays. Happens every year. There have been a lot of theocratic fascists making a lot of different arguments for a very long time, so really, it's just a matter of where we begin. And maybe we begin with the Daily Wire. This all started with a friend of mine sending a chat that I was in, and me specifically through DMs, this video titled, "The Illinois State Capitol's Satanism display is not protected by the First Amendment." And oh boy, is this video a doozy. In this video, Michael Knowles, an outspoken theocratic fascist and employee of the Daily Wire, claims that, and I promise I'm not exaggerating here, he claims that freedom of religion does not apply to non-Jehovan religions? Religions that aren't descended from the Old Testament. I'm not even making up a little bit of that. Here he is in his own words.
The Satanists have no right, as a matter of religious freedom, to put up a serpent display at the Illinois State Capitol. They have no right to... The very notion of religious freedom precludes protections for Satanists. The reason is that religion is not just anything you believe about anything. I know colloquially that's how we refer to religion. That's not what religion is. Religion has a real definition, okay? Religion is the moral virtue by which a person is disposed to render to God the service and worship that God deserves. That's what religion is, okay? Religion is a kind of a justice through which and by which we give God what God deserves. In this country, we have a tradition of religious freedom, which means that we are relatively quite tolerant about how people worship and serve God. We might think that one religious group is not worshiping God in quite the right way. You know, the Episcopalians might say, those Methodists, they are not rendering service and worship to God as they ought. But we have a broad kind of toleration for the different groups who sincerely think that they're worshiping God in the way that he deserves, even if they're a little bit wrong about it. Whatever Satanists believe, either they're edgy online atheists or they are explicitly worshiping the Prince of Lies, the chief rebel and first rebel against God's plan. Either way, they can't have religious freedom because they're not religious, they're irreligious. And religion and irreligion are not the same thing.
I'm not making this up. What do you expect from these people? They're fascists. I am choosing to very kindly put aside, at least for the moment, the fact that this definition of religion excludes very nearly every major religion practiced on Earth, including but not limited to Buddhism, Taoism, Sikhism, Shinto, and even the precursor of Judaism, Zoroastrianism. There are people who ostensibly believe in the same God that Michael Rowland says he does that would be excluded from his definition of religion. Instead, I want to focus on, at least in the moment, the definition that he used, because without that definition, the rest of the argument falls apart. I looked the definition up. It doesn't come from any legal document. It doesn't even come from any religious document. It is, and I need to stress again, I'm not making this up. It's a thing that some guy said in 2017. I found the article where he said it. It's linked in the description. You can look it up yourself. And that's weird, right? It's weird because on the one hand, Knowles is giving a definition of religion. I will grant that he is giving a definition of religion and worship from a Catholic perspective. But on the other hand, we are necessarily not talking about what religion and worship means from a Catholic perspective. We're not talking about the Bible here. We're talking about a much more important document, the Constitution. And the Constitution says, the First Amendment says, the very first words of the First Amendment are Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Plain as day, black and white. People go to school for 20 years to find any wiggle room in that statement. And it's weird, I think. It's weird that instead of invoking the words of the Constitution of these United States, a constitution that was written and agreed upon by the founders that he invokes, instead Rollins defers to the word of some random mid-ranking member of the church that he's a member of. And it isn't just him. When you listen to enough of these theocratic fascists, and I will remind you very gently that these theocratic fascists first started grooming me into their worldview when I was 13. Man, I'm so old I had church pastors show me this shit in middle school. When you listen to enough of these theocratic fascists, that becomes a pattern. Theocratic fascists, and I don't just mean people like Michael Knowles here, or Matt Walsh, or Ben Shapiro, and I don't just mean people who I had to listen to when I was a teeny bopper, like Kent Hovind, or Ray Comfort. Televangelists in the 70s and 80s, people like Peter Popoff, or Pat Robertson, and even people as far back as Charles Coughlin, have done this exact thing. They only reference law and legislation critically and detrimentally. They don't even reference the Bible all that much. They cherry-pick whatever bits support whatever they're saying at the time, but they leave it at that. What they will do, and what they often do, is cite other theocratic fascists. They will cite commentaries on the Bible, or they will cite commentaries on the Bible, or other things even further removed from, and this is key, even further removed from the actual thing that they're talking about. I have an entire separate video I've been trying to record that goes into this concept even further, but the short version is, if you say that you're talking about one thing, and then you immediately start talking about a second thing, it's because you wanted to talk about that second thing. Knowles talks about how the Founding Fathers were all Christians, and how none of them would have supported Satanism, but the Founding Fathers were Protestants, not Catholics. And furthermore, the Founding Fathers were Protestants whose grandparents had fled religious persecution by Catholics. They had very strong beliefs about freedom of religion, and very good reason to have those beliefs. Atunche Films has an excellent video explaining all that if you have, like, an hour to burn. And, I know Atunche has been accused of being a neo-Confederate, and I know that a lot of his rhetoric has taken a weird Nazi turn as of late.
It is a natural order. My beer requires enough territory to support its population.
But he is also a historian with actual historical chops. Also, neither of those things are true. Atunche is consistently critical of the Confederate States, so much so that he one time said that their beliefs would make Jefferson spin in his grave. And the video with the Nazi is not only hilarious, but demonstrates why Nazis are still relevant and why they are still very dangerous. His videos can be a little bit difficult to absorb. There's a lot of information, a lot of names, and a lot of dates, but as a consequence, they are naturally very informative, and he is very informed about historic things. If you like my videos, you'll probably like his videos. Go give a couple of them a watch, and if you like them, go subscribe. Knowles claims that Satanists have only been pulling stunts like this for the past few decades, as though he doesn't know that the modern version of Satanism was founded in the fucking 70s. And at every opportunity he has, Knowles presupposes the superiority of his fascist and theocratic worldview. That's not an accident. That's deliberate. If someone, hypothetically, said that they wanted to make an argument about the law and legality, and instead made an argument that every religion that didn't presuppose the same God as theirs was false and illegal, and they made that argument based on a fifth-hand text made by a member of their religion, then we can say with some certainty that person, Michael Knowles, is not talking about the law. He's talking about banning religion. What Knowles' argument boils down to is that because his religion is the one true religion, all other religions have to be done away with, including atheism. What he is saying is that the people who worship those other deities, who have those other beliefs, do not deserve and should not have the same rights as him. And here's the bottom of the thing. The United States, the thing that made us special once upon a time, is that we were very explicitly a nation of laws. We were not a nation where laws and edicts were handed down by gods, or by priests, or by kings who had been appointed by gods. We were a nation where our laws, these laws, were written by people, were agreed upon by people, and could only be changed by people. We were a nation where anyone with a little bit of education could open up and read their laws and understand them. To this day, you can open a copy of the Constitution and read it and understand it. That is not a coincidence. That is not an accident. That is on purpose. Functionally, that means that the Revolutionary Army beat up God and took our rights from it. That is what made us different. That is what makes us special. If there is anything unique and glorious and beautiful left in the ideology of this country, it is based in the idea that only human beings have the right to determine the fate of human beings. These theocratic fascists do not want to make our country better. They do not want to improve us. They want to make us lesser. They would make slaves of all of us. Not slaves of an angry God, for there is no God. Slaves to them. They would become the new holy kings and priests of a new theocratic empire, holding the sinful throat of humanity in place with their holy boot. And if you believe in freedom, if you believe in liberty, if you believe in prosperity, if any of those words mean anything to you, if you believe that only human beings have the right to determine the fate of human beings, then you have a moral obligation to oppose these theocratic fascists in any way that you are able. Really? It's just a matter of where we begin. And maybe we begin with the Daily Wire. So, I'm in the process of editing this video, the one that you just finished watching. I'm in the process of editing this video when I find out that I'm not going to be able to live here anymore. They already shut off the water, they're going to shut off the power, and they're doing it because it's right before a big winter storm. They won't get another chance for a while. It's entirely opportunistic. I have some temporary living arrangement. I'm gonna go live with my mom for a little while, I guess. But I'm not going to be able to live here anymore. And I don't know what to do. I feel like my whole life I've just been trying to get on my fucking feet. Trying to find some fucking balance, and somebody always ends up knocking my feet out from under me before I can. And then everyone in my life tells me that I'm the one who's the world's biggest fuck up. And that I'm a useless piece of shit that just drags down everyone I care about. There might not be any videos for a while, I guess, but have a happy holiday, whatever that holiday is for you, and take care of yourselves. Alright.